Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to take just a minute and thank you all for coming here today and for participating in the panel that I'm also organizing. And it's definitely a big pleasure for me that you decided to be here, and also I hope we can continue our cooperation in the future, and I hope you will have a nice experience today and tomorrow on the conference. So, yeah, I come from Poland, and that's why exactly I would like to talk about Polish parliamentary structure. And I would like to dig a little bit more into the historical approach, especially the 20th century, and why did we establish this specific model of parliament that we have now. And I would like to also consider whether this specific model necessarily works nowadays or maybe not. And I would like to also hear your opinions on that topic, but yeah, that a little bit more later. So, as an introduction, I would like to emphasize that a political institution of particularly prominent importance in a democratic political regime appears to be the parliament, and its presence among the institutions that make up the political system is considered a necessary, though not sufficient, condition for a state to be considered democratic. Thus, states without the parliament certainly cannot belong to democratic states. As an example of such a state, we can give, for example, Saudi Arabia. The mere presence of the parliament, however, does not determine whether it actually implements the idea of popular rule in general. Despite this, in authoritarian and totalitarian states, parliaments are maintained as a camouflage to create the appearance of popular rule. Even in totalitarian systems of the 20th century, parliaments usually functioned as their representative characters, and they were only limited by the introduction of a single dominant party system or by the manipulation of electoral law. Among the numerous classifications of parliament, the most widespread one takes its internal organization as the criterion. There have been various solutions in this respect, with the number of parliamentary chambers varying from 1 to even 5 chambers. I think as such an example we can give Yugoslavia. They were experimenting with 5 chambers of parliament. There was such a period of time. But in modern states, one does not encounter such a wealth of solution. Nowadays, the parliaments mostly are divided into these that have a one-chamber structure or two-chamber structure, like Poland. It is to be considered an extremely difficult task to identify the relationship between the number of chambers, number of parliamentary chambers, and the characteristics of state. As some of the scholars rightly point out, internal organization is not a criterion for dividing into parliaments functioning in a democratic or authoritarian systems. There are unicameral parliaments in democratic states such as Denmark, Finland, and Portugal, as well as authoritarian states such as former USSR republics like Tajikistan or Uzbekistan, but also African states, Angola or Chad. Similarly, bicameral parliaments can be found in democratic states such as USA, such as UK, such as France, but also in authoritarian states such as, for example, Ethiopia. According to the data from the Inner Parliamentary Union, most parliaments around the world have a single chamber. Out of 191 parliaments, 114 adopted this arrangement. This means that it's found in almost 60% of the world states. It is also worth pointing out that the unicameralism is a more recent phenomenon than bicameralism. Parliaments originally consisted 2 chambers, Hence, in many countries, the existence of the second chamber is explained by historical tradition. Such an approach, in my opinion, and opinion of many Polish constitutional lawyers, also applies in Poland, and I will get to that point later. But as I said, unicameralism in a general term is pretty modern approach. For example, Iceland abolished the internal division of the parliament into two chambers in 1991, Sweden in 1970, Denmark in 1953, New Zealand in 1950. In post-war Europe, unicameralism, apart from the Scandinavian countries, was adopted by two young Mediterranean democracies, Greece in 1975 and Portugal in 1976. Parliaments in some post-communistic countries also have a single chamber. This has been adopted in Hungary, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Serbia, Albania. In the year 2000, the upper chamber was also abolished in Croatia. Firstly, it was established by under the constitution from 1990. And yeah, so when it comes to Poland, one of the arguments most often cited by the proponents of bicameralism is to point the long systemic tradition of the functioning of the second chamber of parliament. This is certainly the case in Poland, as I already said. The modern state derives from the Royal Council, which was constituted in the mid-14th century. And it is thus historically older than the parliamentary chamber. The Senate in Poland was not abandoned in the Second Republic either. This step was only taken by the communistic authorities, who decided to abolish the institution in the falsified popular referendum in 1946. In this situation, the fact that the Polish Senate, regardless of its current place in the political system, it's defined with the independence, autonomy and the freedom of Polish nation and state, is not surprising, while the abolition of the second chamber of parliament brings to the solution far removed from democratic standards. And also the year that the false referendum was held, it's 1946, and that's the very beginning of the communistic regime in Poland. And also the second chamber was reintroduced in 1989. And I think that specific dates that are coming with reintroducing, abolishing the second chamber have also the symbolic meaning in heads of many scholars, in heads of many public authorities in Poland. And citizens, because I mean, there's a majority of people in Poland who don't associate communistic regime with something positive, and also abolishing the second chamber during the communism was to presume the unified state altogether. So also the existence of the second chamber can be associated with rule of law and good law, standing in the as the police of being actually the law being the way it has to be. Yeah, as I said, in the line with what I just said, it can be concluded that in the deeply rooted belief in Poland that the existence of bicameralism is justified. Bicameral structure, which had obviously the political purpose in the past when it was reintroduced, today might not necessarily play the key role either in the efficiency of the legislative process or in ensuring that the Polish state functions according to the principles of a democratic state under the rule of law. The return of Senate in Poland has opened up a debate that it can be described in words: the second chamber in Poland either unnecessary or ill thought out. This choice of words may lead to interesting consideration of the nature of bicameralism. Finding such a concept of the bicameral parliament in which the structure will be justified, so-called thoughtful Senate, the existence of the second chamber should be based on the rational motive, not only on the mere desire to maintain such a model for the sake of the principle, because of the tradition. And as an example for that, I can put some federal states, because Poland is not a federal state, but in federal states such a solution exists. But it works in a little bit different manner, and based on different rules, because the first chamber represents the state as the whole, and the second chamber usually represents interests of the individual lands or cantons, etc. The bicameral nature of parliaments of federal states confirms that the requirement of aim of the second chamber, the purpose is clear and it's defined. What is the purpose of Polish Senate? Yeah, I will get to that a little later. Some of the Polish scholars also bring up the theory that the restatement of the second chamber in '89 was not necessarily an attempt to preserve the systematic tradition, but an attempt to seek new solutions that were necessary at the time. New ways of representing society. I'm referring to Solidarność. I'm referring to the majority of society that clearly wasn't represented in the 80s in Poland. The crisis in this field was highlighted by the situation during martial law, the evident lack of parliamentary representation. The reflection related to this did not came from the perception of the importance of the second chamber in the past, but from the political need of the time. I'm repeating this phrase, not for, I'm repeating myself with this, but I think it's quite important in that specific topic. Yeah. And the situation prevailing in Poland in the 90s, in the 80s, and 2024, it's different. And the abolition of the second chamber is also due to the maintenance of unity propaganda. The Senate has a longer history in Poland than Chamber of Deputies. However, the historic role of Polish Senate was due more to solemnity of the first dignitaries of the Republic sitting in it than its statutory powers. Briefly about the Polish parliament structure. In Poland, there are two chambers of parliament, Sejm and Senate. Both chambers play roles in the legislative process and in the control of executive. And here are some basics. Sejm, the composition of Sejm, it has 460 MPs who are elected in a 4-year term by universal, direct, and proportional representation. When it comes to the method of election, MPs are elected in multi-member constituencies according to a proportional system. This means that the number of seats allocated to a particular electoral list depends on the support it has won in the election. And when it comes to the function, the most important one is the legislative function, and the Sejm initiates the legislative process and is included in enactment of laws, which then go to Senate. Sejm also has a control function of the government's activities, including through vote of confidence, vote of no confidence, and parliamentary interpellation. And Sejm also approves the state budget. And when it comes to the Senate, now in Poland, we have a Senate composed of 100 senators who are also elected for a 4-year term by majority of election. When it comes to the method of election, senators are elected in a single mandate constituencies under the majority system. The candidate with the highest number of votes is in the district wins the seat. When it comes to the functions, they are, I can say, pretty much similar to the first chamber, but yeah, a legislative function, the most important one. The Senate has the right to consider law passed by Sejm to table amendments to them. It has 30 days to respond to each law. When it comes to the control function, although we can establish some reasons for assuming that Senate also has control over government, I think there is a huge lack in that field, but yeah, I will say that a little bit later. And when it comes to the other function, the Senate takes part in appointing the members of certain bodies, like the members of Constitutional Court. When it comes to the cooperation of Sejm and Senate, the Sejm has an overriding role in legislative process. If the Senate rejects the bill and introduces amendments, the Sejm can adopt the bill without the Senate's amendments, provided it obtains a sufficient majority. Both chambers have their own speakers, Speaker of the Sejm, Speaker of the Senate, who are supervising the inner works of these chambers. As I briefly mentioned before, when it comes to the control function mentioned by me, as far as the control of the government is concerned, it's exercised exclusively by Sejm, which follows directly from the provision from the Constitution of Poland, more specifically Article 95. This can be interpreted as depriving the Senate the control of the government. Also, the provision regarding the appointment of the government, inquiries in relation to the government, the Senate has been explicitly left out of these procedures. However, if the control function is extended not only to the relation to the broader government administration, but also to the other organs of the state, one can speak of the control function of Sejm and Senate. Now I would like to show you something that was said by the former president of Republic of Poland, Lech Kaczyński, who tragically passed away in a plane crash in 2010. This particular citation from him is from year 2007. At the time he was the president of Poland, and I would like to read it, because I think it can shed a light and give some perspective on how the second chamber in Poland is seen by many public authorities, and what is the in their opinion, what is the purpose of the second chamber. So here it goes. The Senate is the upper house of parliament, the chamber that evolves from the royal council back in the late 15th century, and the one that it was aristocratic chamber of our country because of the noble republic, at least formally, did not recognize titles of count or duke. It was a number of chairs or seats in the Senate that determined the position of a particular family. The Senate existed as a chamber presided over the third same state, the king, until the end of the First Republic. It existed in the Second Republic, and its existence was interrupted with the end of that republic. It is worth recalling here that in the course of referendum, a rigged one in 1946, the basic question about which there was a dispute, albeit one of the symbolic nature, what was the continued existence of the Senate. To speak out in favor of its continued existence was to speaking out against communism, which was then in power in Poland, not yet complete. The Senate is regarded as a chamber of reflection, and this reflection is needed. This is why calm reflection on a bill by the chamber, which of course is a political chamber, as it cannot be otherwise in a developed party-based democracy, is nevertheless political to a somewhat lesser degree than a lower chamber, the same. This work, this calm reflection is essential, and this is the second reason why the Senate should continue to function. This senatorial reflection has already resulted in a number of very significant amendments to numerous law and has already caught many mistakes. The Senate has also come up with many valuable initiatives, and that can lead to a conclusion that this approach is strictly rooted in the historical approach. The former president of Poland highlights many times that it evolves from the royal council, that it's the chamber of reflection, and the reflection is needed. Yeah, this is very interesting approach, especially when you look at the numbers. 100 senators, the majority of whom come from the ruling party, because these are the statistics in Poland, spend their time reflecting on a project on which the same deliberation has already taken place in the lower chamber. In the same political environment. According to the statistic, it has been very rare during the existence of the Third Republic of the Senate to call the rejection of the bill passed by Sejm. For example, in the Senate of the sixth term, there was 4 times and there was 708 bills in total. In the same of fifth term, there was 6 times and there was 1,265 bills in total. The ninth term Senate, 0 bills were rejected and there were 662 bills in total. And in addition, it should be taken into account that, for example, the expenditure on the Senate Chancellery in 2017 was 169 million Polish zloty. So it can be also argued that this is the unnecessary bureaucracy delaying the legislative process with no apparent reason, also a burden to a state budget. But to be not completely one-sided, because I'm sure that there were some, as it was said, there were some really valuable amendments made by the second chamber. Of course they were. And if you look at this from this particular perspective, then the existence of the second chamber is right on point and it should exist. But as I said with the numbers before, like 60% of nowadays parliaments are unicameral. And it doesn't, what I also said, it doesn't prove that the unicameral parliaments are authoritarian. They don't have to be, they are not necessarily. So maybe what I'm trying to say with all of this is that we can, there might be some ways of modifying the Polish parliament, maybe abolishing the second chamber, make the legislative process more efficient, faster, without wasting time of people and without wasting the state money. And yeah, according to the Article 10th of the Polish Constitution, the 3 powers of the Montesquieu model are to be equal. The legislative authority defined in this provision is therefore to be understood in the functional sense. This by no means means that there are that the 2 chambers are equal. They are formally equal, but they are, but taking into account even mere exercise of the control function in the relations to the Council of Ministers, it's only exercised by Sejm. So it's also the matter of some disputes in the when it comes to Polish constitutional lawyers. Yeah, there is an obvious inequality between the chambers of parliament in Poland. Does such a system have a real impact on the practical improvement of the legislation passed? According to many Polish constitutional lawyers, no. In theory, the upper house is supposed to uphold good law, so-called good law. In practice, however, it is hard to ignore the fact that even in terms of the most important functions performed by Senate, it is significantly limited. Summarizing the statistics of the Senate's legislative initiative, it can be said that activity of the chamber in terms of bringing bills is not impressive. The relatively infrequent use of the right of legislative nature by the second chamber should not come as a surprise. Statutory regulation often touches on numerous and complex problems, so it's obvious that the main promoter of the project and changes in the state administration with the government at the procedure is way more complicated in the second chamber than it is in the first one. Another barrier that the Senate has to deal with is activity in terms of proposing bills, and it's also overly complicated and difficult procedure that every Senate bill has to face. Same, in order to initiate a legislative proceeding, for them is enough to informally take only 15 signatures of MPs or to bring about the consensus position of a majority of members of the committees. It is therefore not surprising that political parties and especially opposition parties choose the shorter parliamentary initiative route when promoting their own bills. It happens pretty much often. Yeah, but speeding up a little bit. as I already emphasized, when it comes to key legal and functional challenges related to that issue, improving the role of Senate in the Polish parliamentary system could be based on several key proposals that would strengthen the importance and increase its effectiveness. So, for example, wider competences in the legislative process. Currently, the Senate has mainly an opinion function, but could be given the power to initiate laws to a greater extent, not only on minor issues. Proposals could include the ability to block or introduce significant amendments to laws passed by Sejm, with greater influence over their final form. The second idea connected with that is increasing control over appointments of the state position. The Senate could be given the power to approve or reject key appointments to a senior state position, such as constitutional court judges, presidents of supervisory bodies, members of monetary policy council. This would allow for a better check on the balance of powers. Also, we can distinguish the possible change of the system of electing senators, proportional system versus single-minded constituencies. The current electoral system for the Senate is based on the single-minded constituencies, which promotes stability, but doesn't always reflect on social needs, social and political diversity. A change to a proportional system could ensure better representation of the different social groups, political parties, and minorities. Alternatively, a mixed model can also be taken into consideration that would combine elements of both systems and could be also effective. And the third idea is the Senate as the citizen chamber, that the citizens' participation in the legislative process could be increased to strengthen the role of Senate as the citizen chamber. There could be introduced some mechanism for public consultation, and referendum could be introduced. Citizens could propose legislative initiatives to be considered in the Senate, and the Senate could have a role in evaluating nationwide referendum proposals. Also, the platform for public consultations. So, speeding a little bit. So development scenarios, we can either abolish the second chamber in the future, as I said, 60% of parliaments are unicameral. That doesn't seem to be a necessary solution for Poland right now. Strengthening the Senate is the second option. And the third option is, stability of democracy is something that can come as a result of introducing these changes. So just to sum up, the bicameral parliament structure in Poland is the result of many factors. However, there is no doubt that many of these factors can be considered to be linked to tradition and attachment rather to the real functionality in today's state situation. So the situation that happened 35 years ago, it's not necessarily reflecting on the current state of affairs. And can we talk about the real efficiency of bicameralism, or does it just exist for the sake of the principle? Thank you very much for your attention.